Welcome to our eFile Cabinet webinar, How to Transform Your Business with eSignature. I'm Jesse Wood, CEO here at eFile Cabinet, and I'm delighted to share with you insight about one of our latest features, electronic signature for Rubix. Today we're going to showcase how Rubix does electronic signing of your documents, all while staying in your document management environment. It's simple to set up and even easier to deploy in your organization. Management of e-signing could not be easier. We will discuss compliance standards that are adhered to with our signature solution, ensuring that you remain compliant in any industry. And last, we'll show you eFile Cabinet can submit docs for signature anywhere in your business process. With workflow, we really can speed things up. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize our partner in signature, Signix. Their incredibly powerful technology has coupled together with our document management solution to give you the most efficient, streamlined signature process to improve your business. Now, eSignature has taken the world by storm. Its rapid growth is largely attributed to businesses who have needs for improved efficiency, which, if improved, it allows their organization to focus on what matters most to them. We sought after signing solutions that streamline business processes rather than interrupt and halt those processes while signature takes place. The result is quite amazing, and we think that you're going to agree. Now, with electronic signature, where, when, and how matter. Gone are the days where any old mark will pass for an authenticated signature transaction. No, today, compliance requirements demand that signature transactions bear the digital authentication for the file and proper verification of each digital signer. Rubix's eSignature feature allows users to remain compliant with major domestic and international standards, including eSign, EUTA, FINRA SEC, digital signature standards by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, ETSI, Title 21 CFR Part 11, SSAE 16 or SOC compliance, ISO 27001, HIPAA, the IRS's EVES electronic signature requirements, and the United States Department of Education's 34 CFR 99.30, and even PCI DSS, just to name a few. With our new signature feature, you and your process can remain in compliance. Now, finally, we'll wrap up today's demonstration by showing you how fast and seamless signature can be for your business with eFile Cabinet and Rubix. All of your contracts, agreements, and approvals can easily be sent for signature, even automatically with the added benefit of workflow. eSignature is one of the most secure ways to obtain signature of all of your digital documents. Now, let's take a look. This is a look inside our eFile Cabinet Rubix software. For those of you not familiar with eFile Cabinet, let me orient quickly. On the left, we have our structure layout. So in here, you would have under your account cabinets and drawers and file folders and files, etc. In the center, we show information about what you have selected on the left. And on the right, we show detailed information and document previews of items that you're working with in eFile Cabinet. You can check out some of our other webinars for full functionality reviews on all features of eFile Cabinet and our Rubix software. To begin, let's talk about how easy it is to add eFile Cabinet signature to your account. One of the features that you'll see when it's enabled is the eFile Cabinet eSignature dashboard. Now, that'll be listed here in the hamburger menu that you see on the left. Once you select this, you're able to see any transactions that you have submitted for eSignature. Now, if you have eSignature management selected for permissions, you'll be able to see all submitted transactions for the entire account. You'll also be able to request more signatures. You can also very quickly see here from the dashboard how many signatures that you've used. I've used 11 of 1,000 in my account. Requesting more signatures could not be easier. It literally is a hyperlink from our software. If you click it, your account rep will be notified and he will contact you with how many more signatures you need added to your account. It really is that simple. We wanted it to be streamlined and efficient to work with signatures. Now let's take a look at how a user might actually receive permissions for this. If I go to my admin menu and choose my users from users and groups, you'll see that I have my user here selected. I'm going to choose all of my permissions so you can see how to add these features. Down at the bottom, you will notice we have eSignature management, And again, this is allowing you to manage eSignature on the account as well as choose who can have access to that signature permission. And the eSignature permission, which simply gives me the ability to sign transactions with eSignature. Now, when I'm setting up an individual to have eSignature capability, I only need select this permission, and that's right, no passwords, no additional signer configurations, no more having to remember how and where you have to log in for signature transactions. Because it's fully integrated into the Rubik's environment, you're also going to have an easy availability to see where signature transactions land. They come right back to the location that you choose for signature repository. And so you'll see how that actually happens in this next transaction, but it'll come back just as a new version. Now, we want to show how fast signature really can be. And in order to send this document, contract agreement for signature, all I need to do is sign with eSignature. Now, along the way, there's going to be some things that we go very quickly over this first time through. I'll come back around, I promise, on these. I just want to show how fast the transaction can actually be for signing. And so in this case, I'm going to do a file 10 contract agreement. I'm going to choose a signer. In this case, I'm going to choose from one of my existing users in my system. That's me. And so it'll populate automatically my email, first and last name. And then I'm just going to choose under my advanced to leave the default settings, which is sign this as a new version and put the audit trail in the same folder that I'm starting from. That's this location right here. And all I do is say submit. Once I've done that, my signature tab is going to come up and ask me where I'd like to sign that document. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom where we have our signatures. And in this case, I'm only going to just sign one person's name. We could add additional signers, but I'm going to sign and date that transaction. Now, all I have to do is say next and choose what I want for my email notice to go out. I can change that email message or the subject title for this document. In this case, I'm going to leave it the same. And we'll come back to this, but I'm just going to leave the expiration for that document as default. So I simply say send, and that transaction is already off and running. Now, if I were to switch over to my email and be the user who's going to sign, in this case, it's me, but it could be any person that you've added to sign on that for a signer. I'm going to go to my email, and you will see that I actually have file 10 contract agreement that's ready to be signed. That email's already come in, and all I need to do is click this link. The first thing that's going to ask me to do is accept legal consent for that transaction. This is common for all transactions that are being done electronically for e-file or for electronic signature rather. You do have to accept that transaction. If you don't, you cannot sign. Here I'll be presented with an option for a default signature that is just this look. It looks this way with this font and these initials. If I want to change it, I can say choose custom signature and choose from different fonts. Or I can even draw my own signature. We'll come back to this on what that actually looks like, but I'm just going to say, let's go. And here I can already review my document or go directly to signature. Just because we're doing a fast one, I'm going to say, go directly to signature, and you'll notice it populates me right to the signing place. I say sign and finish. That transaction is actually complete, believe it or not. And so that is all you need to do to sign that document. And I'm going to come back over to eFile Cabinet. Now, normally we are running through on our account several times an hour to pull for completed transactions, and we populate those automatically in your account. Today, because I want this to be instant, I'm actually going to go to my dashboard page, and I'm going to find this transaction that is in progress right now. I'm going to move over and select refresh transaction. Because I've already completed that transaction, this will change state to downloaded, indicating that that has already now come back to my eFile Cabinet account. So if I come back to my view and just refresh that, you will see I've got a new audit trail document, and on the contract agreement itself, as I scroll down, you will notice now that this is the signed version of that document. Yes, it's that simple. You can see from our version history, again, those more familiar with eFile know how we track all versions, but you can see that a new version was added to this document, and that was generated automatically from signature operation, and that does have my signature automatically stored right here on the title line and the date stamp as I put it out to the side for this agreement. Now, in addition to this, because we have to remain compliant, we need to have an audit trail for this particular document. And I chose to just store that right along with it with the name _audit trail. If you select this, you will notice I've got an 11-page transaction document that shows the digital signature of that transaction for that document. Now, this audit trail is actually tied with this certificate to this document. In fact, this version of this document that has my electronic signature on it. This helps you understand, if ever questioned, was it this document or was it a copy of this document or something different that was signed? You would know by this digital footprint that's contained inside this audit trail. We are so excited to be able to present to you how fast this signature not only took place, but what actually happened in that transaction. We know the IP address, the origination of where that signature took place, how it was signed, by who it was signed from, as well as that serial number and the certificate that's contained inside that audit trail for that particular transaction. But what does it look like to you? Just a signed agreement. It's now versioned automatically. I didn't have to go back to one of my other signature platforms and bring that back in, download that, put it back in my e-file cabinet environment. It happened automatically. This is what we mean when we say signatures can happen really, really fast. We love that. We can't wait for you guys to try signing. Now let's take a look at what we do, and this time I'll go a little slower when we do the signature. So again, just to start, we're going to try this particular invoice. We're just going to sign down here at the bottom on this invoice for this transaction. We'll slow it down just a little and show you all the features and functionality that we have for electronic signature. Now, as I right-click here and say Sign with eSignature, again, it's going to prepare this. This time I'm going to name this File 11 just to stay consistent. But when we add our signers, I want to add different signers to this list. This time, I'm going to add a signer that maybe is not one of my preferred users. So I'll start with one that's me. And then I'm going to add a second signer this time that is not in my list. They're not either a user in my system or one of my guest users that I'm regularly using with eFile Cabinet. This time, I'm just going to type their email address. And yes, this will still be me for our demonstration, but you will see that this is just a Gmail address I have. And I'm going to put, just for my name, additional signer. Very creative. And so now on this, I've got two signers that are going to have to sign for that. Now, underneath this advanced menu, I showed you last time how our default was just to add a new version. And for the most part, we think that's probably the convenient way that you will do your signature. But we're just going to show you something a little different this time, how flexible and powerful the eFile Cabinet signature really can be. This time, we're going to choose a specified location for this signed document. And I'm going to choose, under my EFC demonstration and eSignature, I'm going to look under this signature test from file and choose signed files as my repository for this location. So I'm going to select that. And then for the audit trail, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select a different location for that audit trail, showing you that you can put all your audit trails in a very easy to find location and keep them separated and stored in the locations that you want. Now, as I choose that, this audit trail will become the next selected destination. I'll also call attention to what we can do for audit trail governance. Many of the compliance organization, or rather the compliance standards that you'll be complying to in your organization will ask you to prevent a audit trail from being either edited or from being deleted. And so if I simply select those two, protect from editing and protect for deletion, it will store this audit trail document and it cannot be removed or adjusted. That keeps you in compliance and in governance for many of the standards that require you to keep things protected today. And so I can choose those right there at the time of signing and simply say submit. Now, again, this is just going to go through our document signature process. I'm going to first start with Jesse Wood, as he was my first signer. So I'm just going to go down to the bottom of this and drag and drop signature. When I do drag and drop signature, again, slowing this down just a little, it automatically puts a signature field that will be for Jesse Wood, my signer. And it puts a date stamp automatically out to the side of it. If you don't want the date stamp, you can simply select this and delete and remove that from there. But if you do like having that date stamp like I do on all of my signatures, you can leave them there. We can also add our initials to the document. And again, these, just like signature, you just drag and drop. You can place some initials somewhere on the document. So anywhere that you need to have initials for an agreement or a document, you can move those initials to be signed. I can also add a text field. Now, this would be in the event that I need to put a title on there or I have to fill in some information on the document at the time of signing. These text fields can be dragged and dropped onto there, and these individuals can now type a text field on this document as well. Checkboxes are for lists of things that have to be identified by the signer, so we can simply drag and drop checkboxes onto this list as well. As many of those as you'd like to have, they can simply check those for approvals. Read is what we would call CC or carbon copy. This gives someone who is defined as a read-only signer, they can read the document and see what's happening on the transaction, though they're not required to sign it. And then, of course, we have an agree and acknowledge. This would be used in conjunction, in opposition to a signature, not opposition, but it would be used rather than doing a signature. So if I try to move an acknowledge or agree on here, it will notify me that you've already got a signature on there from someone else. And so I would have to remove that signature in order to use the acknowledge. But many times you don't want to actually have an actual signature on the document. You just want acknowledgement or agreement to the document, and that's where you would use the acknowledge or agree functionality. Now for this signature, I'm not going to leave these on here. I'm going to take most of those others off except for my signature, and then I'm going to move to the second signer. So now I'll drop down for additional signer and I can choose where they will sign. And now all I have to do is again drag and drop this onto the document itself, and there is a signer with their signature and a date stamp that goes along with that signature. And that's all I have to do to sign this document. So let's move down and say next. Now here, I can change the title of this transaction. So it doesn't have to be, it takes on the name of the file that you're starting with just to give you something there by default, but you can change that entirely. And I can change the email message that goes out for each of these signers. Both of the signers would receive this same information were I to type and change this transaction. Now the reminders and expiration, I showed very quickly that we had that by default. This slider is so easy and simple to use. Most systems are going to require you to have to separately set up reminders as well as the transaction expiration. We love this addition that we've added to our signature, just to have a default slider going down to 1 day, 2 days, 3 day with one reminder notice, and then just going with several notices all the way out on the different days as you go to day 25 with expirations on 8 and 17. Again, I'm just going to leave this as default 3 and 10. And this checkbox, again, as I mentioned earlier, if I don't want to send any reminders to the signers, I can simply select this and it will turn these off. Now with eFile Cabinet and Rubix, and you're using workflows, later I can show you that you can actually send messages and notifications during the workflow process. So you may not want to have regularly scheduled signature transaction notifications going out. You may just choose to do that in workflow, and in that case, you would disable those notices. So I'm just going to go ahead and send this for signature. You'll notice that it tells me that's already complete. Both signers have received now an email. Let's take a look at what the signer sees. So I'm moving back over this time into my personal transaction account, and you'll notice that I've got an email that already came. This one is for that file 11 eSignature test, and this again is the additional signer, and you'll notice that in that email name. But here it's telling me that I am now going to be signing for the first time. Again, this is our consent, and I'm just going to click on this time so you can see this. All this is an electronic signature disclosure telling you that you are electronically signing and agree to use our electronic signature service that is distributed from eFile Cabinet. And so you have a choice to receive that. I'm going to just say okay, and then I'm going to agree to that. Again, if you decline that to use eSignature, you wouldn't be able to sign electronically. But as I've agreed to that, I can move on to the next part of our transaction. Now this time you can see that I've selected additional signer. It comes up with that default always. It knows the first and last name based on the information that you sent that from eFile Cabinet. But I'm going to choose a custom signature this time. And so I'll choose a different font. I'm going to choose this one over here. I even could, though I'm not on a signature pad, I could choose to draw my own signature. And so in here, I could choose to do additional signer and have my initials put in here. In this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go back and select additional signer so it's easier to read. But I do want to make note here that if you're on a tablet or a phone, it will automatically recognize that. And when you choose custom signature, it defaults you right to draw your own signature with your finger, which is really convenient for those who are using mobile devices. So I'm going to say, let's go. And this time I'm going to say, let me review the document. Now the difference here between review and go again, in the last transaction, I showed you how it took me right to the signature place. Let me review exposes where the signature is, but it lets me review the entire document. So I'm going to choose to review that document. Again, it's a single page in this transaction. So if I just move down, you'll see that there's a place that I can sign, and it will automatically date that when I do this. And so here I've signed as additional signer. I'm just going to say finish transaction, and I am done on my part. Now let's go to my other personal email, where I'm going to find there is another transaction for file review. This is Jesse Woods in this case. You'll notice when I go to the link, it recognizes that it's me, Jesse Wood, not additional signer. And I'm going to accept the consent form. And then here again, I'll just use my default digital signature. And this time I will say, let's go automatically to the transaction. So when I go to this transaction and sign it, I have now completed mine. That is how fast and easy digital signature really can be from our eFile cabinet environment. I'm going to go back into eFile cabinet and take a look at this signature transaction. Now, again, remember I said that these signatures are happening a few times an hour. It will cycle through and pull these into my system. But because I want to be very quick on our demonstration today, I'm going to choose to automatically retrieve that. And you'll notice now that that will download that automatically to my system. And so that changes that status for file 11 to downloaded. And now when I come back into my eFile cabinet environment, and this time, remember, I saved those transactions to a different location. I saved them here. I'm just going to refresh my transaction, and you'll notice that both the signed files and audit trails have been filled in. They were hollow when they were empty. That's because these signatures have now come back into my system, and you'll notice there's both signatures with this version of this file. And because I moved this to a new location with _sign, it is the only version of that file. The original remained in its state. Many times when we're signing files, we want to sign a predefined agreement with someone, and we don't want to overwrite that particular file. And so this is an example of how we could do that and store our signed agreement and audit trail in different locations in my system. Here again is the audit trail. You'll notice this time this is an 18-page document because of the digital footprint of that signature and 2 signers. And you'll notice now that I have that serial number and its unique certificate that's signed here, along with both of the information for both of the signers as they both digitally sign this transaction. Really good compliance and security on that audit trail. Really easy ways that you can view and sign documents inside eFile cabinet. We could not be more thrilled with how simple and easy it is to add signature to eFile cabinet solutions. Now let's go back and take a look. We're going to do just a couple more things. I want to show you how easy it is to do workflow signatures. Now, many times people that are working with eFile cabinet, they'll have workflows. Again, for those that are not familiar with this, this is our workflow utility that allows you to automate business processes. And so I've got 2 that I'm going to work with today. The first is this eSignature demonstration. And just to show you very quickly all that I'm going to be doing with this, I'm going to be preparing for signature a particular file. It is a file that's housed inside my system called eSignature test. And when it's done, it's going to put that eSignature test into the signed folder that we have already predefined for those in my workflow utility. And I'll show you where that is in just a moment. We'll also store the audit trail in there a little bit later for that. So this is a defined step for signature, and you'll notice I already have a defined signer. That's me again, that I'll be going and signing this as part of this transaction. The second stage that I have in my workflow is simply going to add a comment. Now this is manual. I could make this automatic if I wanted to, but I want you to see how the workflow progresses. And so I'm going to show this in a manual state, and all it will do is add all documents have been signed with a date stamp to that new signed document. So let's take a look at how this workflow works. All we need to do is create an instance for this workflow. It'll tell me who is assigned to the different stages in this workflow, and it gives an instant name that's automatically generated. So I'm just going to say create. When I do that, I am Jesse Wood, so I'm a user. It automatically launches me into this workflow state. So I've already got documents defined that are being ready to be stored. It is this eSignature test document. Now I can take a look at that. That eSignature test document is the same type of document I used before, only it doesn't have signatures on that document. And I'm going to choose, in this case, I've already set up some predefined parameters to store it in a specific location and to store the audit trail in a specific location. And you'll notice that I am already selected as a signer. So I don't even have to put myself in there as a signer. All I need to do is say submit document. And so as I do this, the workflow progresses and it takes me automatically to my signature stage because I am the signer or one of the signers. Otherwise, it would just take you and say that's been submitted for signature. But because I am one of those, I'm going to, actually I'm the only one on this particular document, I'm going to sign the very bottom of this invoice. And so I'm going to take my signature, put that on, it'll put my date stamp along with it, and I've done my part. So I'm just going to not change the title or the email or the notifications. I'm simply going to submit it for signature, and that has now been sent. So that document will have to be signed. So I'm going to switch over to my email really quick. There it is. And now I will click on the link to sign below. This takes me in, recognizes that it's me. We've seen this before. I'll use my default signature in just a different stylized font this time, and I will sign that document. Now that transaction again has been completed. So I'll leave that, come back into my workflow. But again, I want that signature rather than just going randomly to be called for. I'd like to pull that in. So I'm going to manually refresh it. Again, this happens several times an hour. Just for the sake of our demonstration today, I don't want to wait for that. So I'm forcing that to happen immediately. But now I'm going to come back to my workflows. I'm going to find my instance that is in progress for signature, and I'll find that right here. When I go to that, it'll bring me to the next stage of that document because the signature piece has been completed. This was that manual comment on that file. And all I'm going to say is add a comment. Again, that could happen automatically if you wanted it to. I just wanted you to see what happened in this workflow process. So all I was doing was preparing for signature and sending it and then giving a comment automatically to that file. Now I'll return to workflows, but more importantly, I'm actually going to go into my system and see what happened. As I go signatures for workflow, you will notice now that in this signed documents folder and in this audit trail as called out by the workflow, I have received that signature test. There is my signature down below, and you will see here is my audit trail for that document that I just signed. And it has all the digital footprint for that. Again, one signer, it would be 11 pages thereabouts on this particular document for the audit trail. But that signature process happened just for me starting from workflow and saying create an instance. Everything was kind of predefined. We love how easy it is to send things in workflow. Now, what if my process, my business process for signature, it was in the middle, or I needed to do something inside my documentation to kind of kick that workflow off rather than having to come here and just start an instance of that workflow. Let me show you how we can do that. First, I'll show you this auto signature from Upload. This workflow is a 4-stage workflow, and I'm going to show you what it's actually doing. It is taking a document to be signed, but it doesn't know what that document is yet. This happens when I drag and drop a file into a particular location. It will submit that document for workflow. And so when that folder is the kickoff workflow location, which I'll get back to in just a moment. This again will send it to an _sign directory, to a specific location with an _sign name. And it will also send the audit trail to a predefined audit trail that we just saw previously. I'm not choosing to protect those from editing or deleting, though I could, and I do only have one signer that's on this particular document, though I could add those signers at the time of workflow if I wanted. So it is possible to add additional signers right at the time of the workflow itself. And so this is set up in stage number 2. It will be an auto sign. And what this will do is put a document comment on there that all documents have been signed. Then I will be sending that via email. So I'm going to send the actual document via an attachment with this customized email message to myself at the completion of this. Remember earlier I said if you wanted to turn off auto notifications for signature, you could, and you can actually have workflow steps sending customized emails to those people involved in that signature process. And then because I can, I'm going to actually move the original file back into its started location. Remember, I will drag and drop that file into this kickoff workflow location. This will actually move the original file back to the location so I can start that process again if I want to. The new signed and audit trail documents will already be versioned and deposited in the location. So let's take a look at how this works. So I will come back to my home and I'm just going to take this tax return right here, and I'm going to submit that into my kickoff workflow. So all I have to do is drag and drop this. That will move that document into that location, and believe it or not, that actually started my workflow process. So now, as I come into workflows, if I were to come up here and look at this, I've been notified in my notifications that an auto sign signature has started. If I click it, it takes me directly into my workflow for that signature to take place. You can see that I'm brought back into my workflow. Here again, I could add another signer if I wanted to this, or I could change some of the parameters for storing that document, but I'm going to leave them as I've already previously defined. And so I will submit that document. It will now take that document and submit that for signature. This is a big document. It's actually an example of a tax return. And so that tax return will load into my signature platform. I believe it's about 30 pages. And so I'm going to scroll way down on this tax return to the location that I want to for signing. I can see it's even a little further down than this. But here on this second sheet, you'll see there's where the signers can take place. And so from this point, I'm going to drag and drop my signature right there. You'll notice that in this case, I do have a date field. Now, here you can just see how easy it is to align those signatures. I'm going to shrink that date field just a little bit as well and move that right into the date column. That's all I need to do for this document for signature. Now, I'm not going to adjust anything here, although we've seen that we can, and I'll submit that for signing. So this started by me just dragging and dropping a file to a location. That workflow automatically started and added those signers. They were automatically added as part of the workflow step. So now I'm going to go and call that transaction due and sign it. So let's move over to our email. And we should see that I've got documents ready to review. When I select that, it'll ask me for my consent for signature. And again, I will use that default signature. This time I am going to say go, so it'll go right to that page that I need to sign those documents on for that tax return. Simply say finish, and this has automatically saved my documents back to eFile Cabinet. So let's go call those back into my system by going to my dashboard and go to my account transactions. You'll notice that I have one to be signed that's in progress. So I'll refresh that transaction. That will download that transaction automatically to eFile Cabinet. So now let's go take a look at where that is. Once we refresh this, you'll see that I've got now signed documents and an audit trail. This one is now the Rachel Sampson document that has been brought into this location. And down on page 24, you will see that I actually have Jesse's transaction with the date stamp put in the date field. So that's how easy that automated signature can happen even from a workflow. And were I to check the audit trail, you'll notice that I have that audit trail as well automatically put in here for this particular document. So just showing you how easy it can be from workflow. So whether I'm starting things automatically, whether I'm dragging and dropping files to kick off workflows, or whether I'm just simply right-clicking and sending for signature, signature has never been easier with eFile Cabinet. We absolutely think you're going to love what we're doing with signature. It's never been easier. Again, no more passwords or setting up configuration for signers. All you need to do is give them the permission in your account, and those people will be off and signing for eFile Cabinet signature. All right. That's going to wrap things up for us today. We just want to tell you thank you for attending our eSignature webinar. We cannot wait to help you improve your business with eFile Cabinet and eSignature. Call or email us today. Thanks for your attention and happy signing.